Welcome back. U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials have announced that 70 current and former Border Patrol employees are under investigation over a secret Facebook group featuring posts mocking migrants and members of Congress. Customs officials on Monday announced the probe into 62 current and 8 former employees. The move comes after ProPublica reported earlier this month that it had obtained screenshots of several recent discussions from the Facebook group called 1015, the CPP's code for aliens in custody. NBC News has not independently confirmed the authenticity of those posts. ProPublica has said the posts included jokes about the deaths of migrants, discussions about throwing burritos at Latino members of Congress, and a vulgar image involving Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Joining us now, member of the Judiciary Committee, Democratic Assistant Whip, Congresswoman Veronica Escobar of Texas. And thanks so much for coming back on the show. So update us on your efforts to protect migrants at the border, to protect children, and to improve conditions. Have you made any headway? And what is the latest information from the border?
Well, thank you for having me on the program again, Mika. It's wonderful to be with you this morning. You know, when we saw the debate about the border supplemental bill recently, the issue for Democrats was not about money. The issue for us was about standards and accountability and oversight, the very things that have been lacking at the Department of Homeland Security for far too long, the things that create these conditions, including policy from this administration. And so when our House bill did not make it to the Senate, did not even get a debate on the Senate floor, the Speaker rallied us and we talked about how we could continue to push standards and oversight and accountability. So what we're going to see, we have made headway, and you're going to see this week markup on 2 very important pieces of legislation. One of them will be to increase the humanitarian standards of those who are in our custody, migrants, vulnerable migrants in our custody. We'll be marking that up in the House Judiciary Committee. And then in the Homeland Committee, a bill that I first introduced in April that comes from folks on the ground and that has been made better with the help of Chairman Benny Thompson. It's an accountability bill, a Homeland Security Improvement Act bill. That will be marked up today as well. And hopefully we'll be voting on those 2 very important pieces of legislation next week so that we can increase the standards. It's not about resources. El Paso, Texas, a community with 0 federal resources to address the humanitarian needs of migrants, we've done a far better job than the federal government with almost unlimited resources. So we're hoping that the Democratic Party, the House work, the standards and care that we believe in will make it through next week, and I believe it will.
All right. Karine Jean-Pierre has a question. Karine?
Hi there, Congresswoman. Thank you so much for fighting for these migrant folks who are coming over, and it just feels so helpless. And so one of the questions that I have for you is, you were talking about what Congress is going to do, the marking up of bills and the legislation. It almost feels like we should be having hearings every day, bringing forth ICE, heads of ICE, head of HHS, head of DHS, and asking them the hard questions and holding them accountable. Now, why is that not happening?
Well, we saw 2 hearings this week in Judiciary. We saw a hearing last week in Oversight. We're going to keep having hearings. I've requested field hearings in El Paso, Texas, which has been ground zero for the president's abhorrent attacks on migrants. And, you know, I will tell you, I think the American public has been so horrified and shocked by the images, by the sounds, by the information that's been coming from the border and from at the hands of this administration, that my hope is that we will finally see the Senate wanting to take the same kind of action and wanting to work with us in improving conditions, because these conditions are not reflective of who we are as a country. They shouldn't be. Everyone should be condemning the standards or the lack thereof and working alongside. This should be unifying the House and the Senate.
Congresswoman, it's Willie Geist. It's good to see you as always. To Kareen's point, we've seen so much of this with our own eyes now. We've been hearing stories about it for so long. People have come out and condemned it. Most Americans have. But it doesn't feel like anything's being done about it, per se, in the body where you sit. What hope can you give people watching today that these conditions may stop sometime in the near future or end altogether?
It really, Willie, that's a great question, because it really will take the American public standing up and reaching out to their members of Congress and to their senators. The House is leading on this issue. The House is taking action on this issue. The House is creating standards, accountability, and oversight that the American public is demanding. We need the Senate to do the same. We need Senator McConnell, the one person who has more power than he should on the Senate side, who is preventing these important debates and discussions about how we treat people humanely. And so the American public, we need you. We need you to call your senators. We need you to call Mitch McConnell. The action and the leadership being demonstrated by the House needs to be reflected in the Senate as well.
Representative Escobar, unlike all of us around this table, you live with the border each and every day. Unfortunately, the Republican Party has managed to sell the concept to large portions of the American public that Democrats are weak on border control. So I'm going to ask you, I'm assuming that you are not for open borders. Am I correct in assuming that?
You're absolutely correct. And I'll tell you, there's nobody in the country who more wants a safe and secure border community than those of us who live there.
What's your plan to strengthen border enforcement?
Here's the challenge with looking at it through that lens. We have spent hundreds of millions of dollars on border enforcement. My community has a wall. It's had a wall for a decade. My community's been safe for 2 decades. Communities all along the U.S.-Mexico border are safer than most communities in the interior of the country. This isn't about border security. We have more agents than ever before, more walls than ever before, more drones. You name it, we've got it on the border. This is about how we're treating asylum seekers who are arriving at our front door. We're treating them as a national security threat. I want our agents to go after the folks who are trying to do us harm. But as a country, we've got to separate that group from the families, the women, the children who are seeking refuge and asylum. They are not a national security threat.
Congresswoman Veronica Escobar of Texas, thank you very much for being on the show this morning, and thank you for what you're doing. Coming up, second quarter fundraising totals are in, and 5 Democratic White House hopefuls are well ahead of the rest of the field. Steve Ratner has charts on the surprises ahead of Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.